Welcome back to another Combo Tuesday. Today I want to work on low cover stuff. Last week it was high cover, so a reflexive response to an attack at my head. Now I want to work on a reflexive response to an attack at my midsection, my gut level. Martial arts warm up. There we go. I'm just going to turn the sound up on this, otherwise I won't hear it. All right, there's my timer going. Now I'll make the statement that a cover is not the same as a block. A block is a specific response to a specific attack, a specific response to a specific punch or technique. So the block exists because the block is tailored to that specific technique. A cover is not. A cover just kind of covers an area. If you think of it as an analogy of zone defense versus man-on defense, zone defense is just covering a specific area of the court or the field, whereas man-on defense is covering a specific man on the field. One specific player. Why is this an important distinction? Because when I'm talking about blocking something, I have a specific technique in mind. When I'm talking about covering, I don't know what's coming at me. I'm just trying to, stop as many things as possible from coming in a general area, which is why a cover is just something as simple as this. I'm covering this whole side of my head. That's why it's fairly easy to cover high techniques, because a head is a small target. There's a limited number of angles from which it can be attacked, and you can cover the entire head with one arm. My arm is bigger than my head. Most everybody's are. So it's fairly easy to cover the entire area with a single technique. Low covers are a little bit different. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first and most obvious is that, unlike with my head, my arm is not bigger than my torso. There's a lot of territory between here, and a very small, relatively small object to intercept everything coming in that direction. There's a lot of angles at which something can come at my torso. It can come straight in, like a teep kick. It can come up, like up through the groin. It can come around from the side. A lot of different ways somebody could attack my torso. So those are two reasons. One, size of the target versus the size of the target area versus the size of the intercepting limb. Two, number of angles at which it can be attacked. But three, has to do with the nature of the target. The head houses my brain. You hit it hard enough with pretty much anything, I'm going down. Even a fist, a baseball bat, a rock, a beer bottle, whatever. All they're trying to do, usually, is just whack it with something. This is not the case for the torso. I mean, you could take a baseball bat to my ribs as hard as you want. Yeah, it's going to hurt. It's going to break ribs. Might do internal damage. But it's not the immediate incapacitation that it would be if you took that same baseball bat to my head. So that's a way of saying that people will soak up damage to their torso and pay for it later, obviously, but in the moment, they'll soak up that damage and not feel it until later. So what does that mean? That means that if somebody's trying to sucker punch me in the ribs, okay, yeah, it's gonna hurt. Might even, if it hits the solar plexus, might even knock the wind out of me. But it's not an instant shutdown most of the time. What it is it's setting me up for follow-on techniques. That sucker punch to the gut isn't going to end the fight. What it's going to do is make me do this, and then he ends the fight with something else. Why is this important? It means that when somebody is attacking my midsection, they are attacking with a force multiplier. Hardly anybody's going to start a fight by haymaker to the ribs. The haymaker comes to the head. Hardly anybody's going to start a fight with a straight shot to the solar plexus. Anybody who does is either an idiot who doesn't know what they're doing, or a very highly trained fighter who does know what they're doing and can precisely place that shot. The majority of attacks that come in at my midsection are going to have some kind of weapon involved. Usually a knife. So what I'm thinking of is the shank attack, where somebody is coming up, usually a right-handed person, because most people are right-handed, and they're coming at me from a flank, 45 degrees, right hand, and they're just going to stab as many times as they can. A good way to get a feel for that is to get a bag. I'm just going to use my empty hand here because I don't want to cut up my bag. It's expensive. And I'm just going to go as many times as I can in a second. That's what's probably going to feel like, is somebody's going to just come out of nowhere and hit me in this general area 3 or 4 times before I even know what's going on. And unlike with a punch, where I have to put significant force in it, especially to the body, I have to really put my weight into it to make it effective. With a knife, theoretically, I could just use my wrist. And I'm doing damage because it's an edged weapon. All of that force that would be spread out over the whole area of my fist is now being concentrated on a point that's only a few molecules wide. It goes in like butter. Yes, it could be done with minimal force, with just little taps like that, but it almost never is. It's done with full. Why? Because they're trying to get as many shots in as they can in a very limited amount of time before their victim has time to react. So a universal of almost all knife attack videos is the multiple attack and the knife is being pulled back. As soon as it hits the target, it's being pulled back. And this is why a lot of martial arts knife defenses will not work in real life. Like, I've taken this to the mats live with my brother, and we've played around with knives. A lot of these martial arts defenses don't work because as soon as he tries to hit that first attack, he's going to immediately pull the knife back and begin another attack. So if I'm trying to do some kind of fancy grab, spin, twist type thing, I'm going to grab, go to spin, and as I'm going to spin, he's pulling the knife back. Maybe I can hang on to it. Maybe I can't. If I can't, he's going to shred my hand as he pulls the knife out. If I can, then I'm following him and he's still stepping away as I'm trying to close the distance for that spin. So it's interesting how a lot of the historic European martial arts manuals will, when they talk about knife defense, which they do because nearly everybody in that era carried a knife. When they talk about knife defense, a lot of what they're saying, they don't cover boxing very much. They cover grappling, they cover wrestling, they cover trapping and disarming that way. And I think the reason for that, there's a lot of reasons for that, is that most of the fights at the time were not, a lot of the fights at the time were with weapons, and boxing is not really a good answer for somebody who is, wearing armor, or somebody who is carrying a 3-foot steel blade that they can reach you with before you can get close enough to punch them, or even an 8-inch steel blade where you can punch them in the head, and if they stab you through the spleen, you're gonna, like, maybe you knock them out, but then you're gonna die from loss of blood, and if you don't die, you're gonna die from infection because of the primitive medicine at the time. But it's nevertheless interesting that they rely heavily on grappling techniques to deal with armed threats, whereas that tends to be not my approach. I tend to try to think of in terms of like control the immediate threat and then immediately counterattack, go into a damage-producing counterattack. So what I need to do is dig up some of those old manuals, maybe go to a few classes and try and figure out what that's all about. But right now, I'm just gonna work on that low cover. What I mean by a low cover is I'm just pushing everything away from this area. So let's say the knife is coming up like this. I'm trying to catch it with the web of my hand here between the thumb and the forefinger. And I'm not going for the knife itself. I'm usually going for actually it's called a bicep tie. I'm usually going in here. The bicep elbow area is a really good area to control somebody's arm because it's slower moving than a wrist. The wrist is going, it's really hard to catch that. And that wrist is holding a knife. So if I try to catch that, I'm liable to get stabbed right through the palm of my hand, which is kind of counterproductive. So all I'm doing is creating a little bit of space, getting my hips far back to try and keep that knife attack short, trying to get my hips far back and my hand far out. Now, we're not doing a block. Remember, this is a cover, not a block. A cover is tailored to a block is tailored to a specific technique. So an underhanded stab like this. I don't know whether that stab is underhanded. I mean, it might be, very likely is, but it could also be coming around from the outside like this. Or let's say I missed the initial one or shove it away. He pulls it back and starts coming around the outside. This is why this is a cover and not a block, is I'm creating, I'm shifting my hips away to create some space. Say this is my attacker here. I'm trying to get that elbow. I'm trying to hook right into that elbow, that bicep tie, and control that arm. But I'm also leaving this arm kind of as a barrier. So if I miss that, and the next most likely thing is him to start coming around from the outside and trying to stab around, kind of an around technique. I'm trying to keep this arm in the way. Now, that can only last a very short time before I get cut up through the arm. He gets around that block. He stabs me in the rib, decides it's not going to work on the ribs, and starts going for my neck and head, and then I have to cover high. Playing defense against a determined knife attack is a bad plan, really bad plan. So what I'm probably going to be doing is going for my gun. If somebody's trying to stab me with a knife and they're close enough to do it, shoot from retention, create that space. So initial block, and this is why my draw stroke, so it's kind of time to talk about a draw stroke, I guess, a little bit. A classic concealed carry draw stroke looks like this. My offhand grabs a big fistful of garment, lifts it up to the opposite shoulder as high as I can, while my shooting hand secures the weapon. This is position number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. I modify that. That's not how I draw. And there's a reason for that. My draw stroke, yeah, maybe I'll start the garment moving with my left hand if it's not doing anything. But my draw stroke, actually, I clear the garment with my shooting hand. And what that looks like is, so I'm moving in a circular movement. And just getting far enough so I can get that good number one position on the gun. There are advantages and disadvantages. And I've trained with a lot of different dudes, some very, very experienced pistoleros, some really, really experienced special forces operators, close protection people. I've been around, and there's a reason I go with this technique versus the classic concealed carry draw. The reason is I want it to be a one-handed draw. It's as simple as that. In a civilian scenario, I'm as likely to be hands-on with somebody when I draw as I am to be at shooting distance. So this works great on a range, and it's actually a lot, half a second faster than clearing with the shooting hand. The reason why is because I'm already there. The number one, I've cut out this movement with my right hand, and I've just gone straight to the gun. Now, that works great if the target is far enough away that this left hand has nothing else to do but clear the garment. But what if the target is so close that the left hand is tied up in creating space, in blocking a knife, in doing something like this, holding somebody's gun out of the way, like say I'm sitting in my car, like this, sitting in my car, and I'm pushing a gun against the steering wheel because somebody tried to carjack me. Now, I don't have that suddenly in a civilian scenario, which is different from a military scenario. Military scenario, I'm trying to have my gun out before I even see the bad guy. Like, there's a big difference. Military scenario, I am the one attacking. This is not a defensive reaction. Ideally, militarily speaking, I should never be defending. I should only ever be attacking. Now, that's not the reality, but that's the ideal situation. So for military scenarios, we tend to start the scenario with guns up, and it's usually not a pistol. It's usually a long gun. Civilian scenario, I am starting from a disadvantage because I am not the aggressor. I am the defender. I am the person who is being attacked, or I am the person in an area where some innocent person is being attacked. So that is why I've tailored my draw stroke to clearing the garment with my shooting hand. And sometimes I will start it with my left if it's not doing anything. But even if it's busy like this, I can now shoot from retention. I had the trigger guard entry laser turned on for some reason. I don't know why. All right. So that's response number one. That's my go-to, is try and defend, clear the knife, get to my weapon, while creating space, and then stitch them up as I'm backing out of there. Reassess the situation, decide whether there's other bad guys, et cetera, et cetera. Now let's take the gun out of the equation. Now it's just him. Let's say I'm in a bar, right? Can't carry a gun in a bar. It's illegal. I mean, you could, but then you shoot somebody in a bar with a gun. Next thing the very first thing they're going to do when they get here is do a breathalyzer. Okay. If you have any alcohol in your system whatsoever, you're fried. And two, they're going to ask you why you had a gun in a bar. Yes, you defended yourself with it. Yes, maybe it was the most righteous shoot in the world, but why did you have a gun in a bar? Guns and alcohol don't mix. So let's just get that out of the way. If you have any intention of drinking or being in a place where people are drinking, a gun is not your friend. Now, there's a difference between a bar and a restaurant, but even if I go to a restaurant and I am carrying a gun, I will not have even one beer, not even one. No alcohol crosses your lips if you are carrying a gun. End of discussion. But let's say I am at a bar with some buddies, so I didn't bring my gun. So all of a sudden things are getting ugly, and next thing I know, I'm walking out of the bar and somebody's just trying to stitch up my left side, trying to cut my, create a new outflow for my spleen here. Creating space, I don't have a gun. I'm going to immediately try and counterattack. So these counterattacks they're not fancy. I am not going to get a knockout with that punch. What I am going to do is change his calculus. I'm going to push his head back. This is not designed to win a fight. It is designed to create space and delay a fight a little bit. So that comes in there. That straight right across the top. And then I'm going to try and stomp kick his solar plexus into the next county. And I literally mean into the next county. I'm trying to push him away from me. I've controlled the knife. Now, I'm going to run. I'm out. Sorry, guys. Pirate rules here. Whoever stays behind gets left behind, or whatever that is. Again, so that was an interesting technique. I blocked, and then I covered with a wall here instead of punching and kicking. The reason I did that is because the bag was swinging at me as I pinged. So that sets up an interesting question. What if he is charging into me and I don't have the space to throw that punch? And it's just right up in here. I can't create that space. Do I trap? And what happens if I'm holding his arm like this? He's got a knife right up in my armpit, and he just pulls that arm free. That's going to hurt. It might sever an artery. It might sever a tendon. Now my pec is detached, and my chest looks all lopsided. Bad day. So creating the space, let's say we're this close. All right, now we're going to move it even closer. The basic principle is trying to pause the immediate threat and immediately counterattack with the hardest weapon available to me. If he's coming in low, most likely his head is uncovered. Very few people come in like this. They're not expecting a counterattack. They're the attacker, not the defender. So when they're coming in, they might be grabbing a shirt. They might be grabbing an arm or a shoulder to pull it out of the way. Like he might be, with his left hand, grabbing my wrist, pulling me towards him, grabbing my sleeve and pulling me towards him. I need to create the body mechanics and the body angle to defeat the grab, but I'm not really worrying about the grab. The grab is not what's ventilating internal organs. The knife is what's ventilating internal organs. And the answer to that knife is to shut off the brain that is controlling the knife. So elbow. Now, if I'm close enough to use an elbow, that's a bad day. I probably didn't see that knife coming. I'm probably getting stabbed. Best case scenario in a tricep. Yeah, that's ugly. That's really ugly right there. Because he's close enough to me that he can pull his arm back like this, out further than I can reach it. So bicep tie, he pulls his arm back out to where I can reach it. Next thing it's doing is coming around here. I'm just covering. Like, there's really not much else I can do at that point. Maybe shut the knife, I don't know. And that's gonna just slash my face up as it goes by. That's why it's important to visualize this stuff. Let's say I don't knock him out. That's because that's the most likely scenario, is I'm not going to knock him out. What I'm trying to do is is to change the picture in his mind. He's thinking of this as he's the predator, I'm the prey. He's going in for a high percentage attack. Like, this works every time. And then all of a sudden, instead of just a quick like this, he's now getting pummeled on the side of the head, and his knife isn't hitting the target quite as well as he had liked. He's more like doing this rather than like this. What I'm trying to do is make him have to reset his thinking, and that takes time. That takes the initiative away from him. As soon as he starts to weaken, or to back off, and now he starts pulling off, I don't know whether he's going to run away or whether he's going to immediately counterattack. I'm not waiting to find out. I create that space by whatever means I can. If I have to shove, like there's that good old fashioned, just shove him away from me. If he's a little bit further, there's that kick, and then I'm running. Now, obviously, all the smart asses out there are like, well, what if you can't run? What if your family's there? What if you are up against a wall? Well, then you just keep hitting him as many, like you keep fighting until he goes down. At some point, within a few seconds, probably your adrenaline's going to kick in. You're not going to feel the knife as much. You have that advantage going for you. You have to counterattack and continue. So this is just a way to take the initiative back. This is just a way to take the initiative back. That's all it is. What you do with the initiative after you've gotten it back, that's kind of the answer to that question is, okay, I blocked the knife and stunned him. Am I just going to be like, okay, what's he going to do next? No. I'm going to turn back in, break him down with punches, knock him out, kick him in the groin. If I can't escape, then it's on. I'm taking the fight to him. If I have to take that knife away from him and kill him with it, that's a possibility. The reflexive, like that. And the reason I say reflexive is because it's something that is going to happen one way or the other. It's going to happen prior to thought. It's like something comes in at your head and you just kind of cringe away from it and throw a hand up. That's a reflexive cover. It's not another difference between a cover and a block is planned and executed with a specific technique in mind. A reflex happens before you think about it. It's just, it's the same. It's just a defensive reaction, and you're just trying to kind of acknowledge that if this attack comes at me, if something comes at my head, I'm probably going to do this. I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to look cool. I'm just going to be like, that's going to, be okay with that being my reaction and tailor my response to it. Same thing with that knife coming in. It's probably not going to be something fancy like, break the arm. break the wrist, walk away. It's not going to look like that. It's going to look like there's something coming in. I'm not quite sure what it is, and I don't like it. And I just want to be able to take initiative from that moment where I find myself here, because this is going to happen without me thinking about it. It's that's kind of all there is for today. I did a lot more talking than I really wanted to, but now I got to take it to the bag and actually work on it. So see you next time.